As an actor, I am fascinated with stories. It's amazing that something like this still exists. And Singapore is a perfect source for this. Whoa! What surprises does it hide? Or mysteries to answer? Oh. Join me, Adrian, as I go on a journey to explore and unravel Singapore's secrets. Here on History Mysteries. Built in 1937, Haw Par Villa is Singapore's oldest theme park. Under its colourful facade lies spooky supernatural stories and secret locations. But what is fact or fiction? It all began with this humble ointment, whose tagline went, "Work where it hurts." Now, this little jar made big money. Now, most of us know the All Brothers for this ointment, as well as the park that they built at Pasir Panjang, Haw Par Villa. But did you know that there's yet another Haw Par Villa at Coney Island? Now, from all the pictures that I've seen online, the villa seems to have been abandoned and nobody else has bought it. But why did the All Brothers build this villa on this island in the first place? And where exactly is it? Time to take a visit to Coney Island. Coney Island is also known as Pulau Serangoon. Originally just 13 hectares, it expanded to over 100 hectares after land was reclaimed. About 50 hectares is now Coney Island Park, which was opened to the public in 2015. But in the 1930s and 40s, this was known as Haw Par Island. The island was eventually sold in 1950 to businessman Ghulam Mahmud, who wanted to turn it into a holiday resort, and thus renamed it Coney Island. In 1937, the All Brothers, Boon Haw and Boon Pa, decided to build a villa on the island. Now, I've seen some videos online, and this is one that was shared by the National Heritage Board in 2015 when Coney Island was opened. Now, it's apparent that it's been overgrown by vegetation, and I believe it's fenced off. Now, I'm not going to trespass, but I'm going to, take a peek from the outside and see what I can see. So, the search begins. Do you know of a Haw Par beach villa on Coney Island?
No.
Not really.
No, I didn't.
This is a picture of what it might look like. You didn't come across anything that looks like this? No, you haven't.
No.
But that's right there.
First time.
Is in there supposedly. Would you believe me?
No, I've never heard of it before.
You don't believe me. You don't believe me. It's there apparently.
I see.
Okay, now I've explored a lot of the beach area, okay? Now this being called the Haw Par Beach Villa, you would think it's situated right next to the beach, but apparently not. One explanation might be that a lot of land reclamation has happened over the years, and that has made the villa a lot deeper inland now, so let's go look. Back in 1937, when the villa was built on this island, if it was as peaceful and lovely as it is now, I can see exactly why the All Brothers were attracted to this place and wanted to build a villa right here, because you're surrounded by sea and there's so much lovely greenery. It's super peaceful here. I want a villa here. Whoa, 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 okay, I see something. I see something over there. Could that be it? Don't think so. Okay, so it's a bungalow I'm looking for, right? So that means, I'm assuming, a single-story building. Great, because that makes it even more difficult to find amongst all this mass of vegetation. Wonderful. Well, we've searched high and low. We've spoken to a few people. They've never even heard of it, let alone seen this villa. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, perhaps really, really deep into the vegetation, but I really wouldn't recommend traipsing in there because I think it's kind of precarious. So I think this marks the end of our search for this mythical villa, which is a bit of a shame because I really would have loved to have seen it with my own eyes, because I got so many questions like why did the All brothers decide to build a villa here? Did they return to it after the Second World War? Just so many questions. And I think to find out the answers, I'm going to have to speak to another expert back at the Haw Par Villa that we all know and love. Dr. Donna Brunero, a senior lecturer at NUS, specializes in the history of the British Empire and is well-versed in the All brothers' legacy. Now, I've just paid a little visit to Coney Island, which obviously has links with this lovely Haw Par Villa. How much do you know of the family's history and the heritage on Coney Island?
Okay, the Coney Island Villa, Haw Par Villa in Coney Island, there isn't so much information on it, actually. It's part of a larger picture when you think about it, because the All family was so wealthy, really fabulously wealthy. Having a villa and having your own island was very much, something that they could afford to do. It makes a lot of sense if you think about the All brothers, and All Boon Haw in particular was known for being ostentatious, for being extravagant. Why have a beachside villa if you can own an island?
Yes, indeed. But why choose a site that was on that side of the island?
If they want somewhere that is coastal, or they want their own private sort of retreat, then this island would be perfect for them. The only mention I found is in one of the histories of the family, where they talk about one of All Boon Haw's wives not being well and spending time at this particular villa.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes total sense.
Because the seaside is meant to be good for your health, and this whole idea of the retreat from the hustle and bustle of the city.
So how much do you actually know about the villa on Coney Island?
I think there isn't much that's been written on it, actually. What I managed to find was that it was built by a Singaporean architect, or it was designed by a Singaporean architect, Ho Kwan Yew, and he is one of the early sort of generation of Singaporean trained architects that are sort of emerging and building in a modern style rather than the classical or classicism, right? So he's really opting for something that is quite different. So this is basically what I know about it, and that it was considered this idea of the holiday bungalow.
That is absolutely fascinating. Shall we take a walk, try and spot some tigers?
Oh, you'll see them everywhere.
The more we talked, the more I found out from Dr. Brunero about the All brothers, Boon Haw and Boon Pa. By 1920, All Boon Haw was the richest Chinese in Rangoon. Eager to expand his business, he migrated to Singapore 6 years later at an age of 45 and started his Ing On Tong factory along Neil Road. They made their fortune through their trademark Tiger Balm ointment and built a huge business empire which included the Siu Chin Jit Po, their first newspaper published in Singapore on January 15, 1929, which was used to promote their most popular product, the Tiger Balm ointment, and their branding. Older Singaporeans may still remember it, as it ceased production only in 1983. In 1947, Boon Haw founded Chung Kiao Bank and became the bank's first chairman. But how did the idea of Haw Par Villa come about?
The story goes that All Boon Haw was driving he wasn't driving, he had his driver driving him in his car. The car broke down. I believe it could have been the car that he had with the tiger's head on the front. It broke down somewhere here.
Okay.
And he had looked up at this hill and really liked what he saw in terms of geomancy, in terms of a hill that looks down to the sea, and decided to buy this land. On that, he built this wonderful villa for his brother, so for All Boon Haw.
At their peak, the All family owned many properties in Singapore, including the famous Tiger Balm Garden, or as was later known, Haw Par Villa. This cultural park reflected Boon Haw's deep passion for Chinese culture and mythology. He personally supervised the artisans who created many of the park's original fixtures in the hope that the park's depiction of traditional virtues would provide moral guidance to the public.
The idea was initially it would be open to the public just a few days a year around Chinese New Year, but over time this changed and it became a public garden.
So, where was the villa? And how big was it? And most importantly, how much did it cost them to build? To get the answers, we needed to hunt down this man. Meet Jayature Ayadure, historian and principal consultant in the establishment and management of Haw Par Villa.
The steps here represent just one of the 3 entrances into the garden that goes into the house. And as you enter, you see the leopard and the tiger on both sides because they represent the 2 brothers, Bun Haw and
Bun Pa.
Bun Pa. See, cultured
Haw and
leopard,
the-
cultured tiger. They started building the villa in 1935. Took them 2 years to complete it. It's a grand building. And because the brothers were so modern in their approach, the Art Deco style that came up in the 1920s, well, the brothers were the latest with the fashion. So this great mansion was built by the elder brother for the younger brother, who had not 1, but 3 wives. All reports say that the family got on fine, and you had a huge mansion with more than 9 rooms and 4 bedrooms. When you look at it, when it was built in 1935 and completed by 1937, it was one of the most expensive homes. It took more than $250,000. That was massive.
Then I discovered from Jaya that when World War II broke out, the park and villa were taken over by the Japanese forces, forcing Bun Haw to move to Hong Kong and his brother Bun Pa to flee to Burma, where he died in 1944. The 2 brothers never met again. After the war, Bun Haw returned to Singapore only to find his villa and park damaged during the war and looted after the Japanese surrendered. Devastated by the loss of his brother and the destruction of his prized properties, Bun Haw decided to demolish the villa, though he did try to rebuild the park. Before this, all I knew about them was Tiger Balm and, of course, Haw Par Villa. So I'm so glad to have gotten a chance to find out so much more about the brothers' personal lives, their stories, their secrets, and the drama behind the legend and the human beings behind the businessmen. But what about the stories and secrets behind the All Brothers Haw Par Villa? Is there some truth to the urban legend that Haw Par Villa's infamous 10 courts of hell is the actual gateway to hell itself? Or is it just a harmless tale told by our parents to scare us into behaving? In search for an answer, I'm meeting Rahim, who says that his friend had a spooky encounter at Haw Par Villa when he was working there. And Rahim is convinced that the encounter actually happened.
I'm a performer there in Haw Par Villa. So since 1990, late 1990, opening of Haw Par Villa. So my job is to entertain the crowd, and Then there's this period. They decided to open during the night. I think it's somewhere in Chinese New Year.
Okay.
So they decided to have a night show.
Right.
My friend doing a show at Four Seasons Theatre. Okay, and that area a bit like quiet, So for the performance, always had to go there to gong.
Okay.
Gong, 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 gong. Showtime, showtime, showtime. So people start coming in, come one by one, all start. And then the stage is like hollow, like down like that. So we're performing down, so we see the crowd like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that area, there's a lot of statue. And then there's this statue. In front of the statue, there's one lady standing. And then her hair very long, cover the face. And she stand in front of that statue. Don't move at all. After the show, 20 minutes. Can you imagine? You imagine, 20 minutes, the lady just stand there. Doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And then his hair all starts standing. Starts standing. And then he go nearer. Then he, very quiet. Then he walk back. Slowly he move back. He walk back. He walk back. He walk back. He run. Come, let's go.
Did you see anything, experience anything around there?
Sometime if you work there so long, you can see the statue, hand is like that. Then one day you like, it goes lower. Just play along, just
Right.
come, happy, go back.
Right. I mean, Haw Par Villa, I suppose, is one of those places that is very, very fascinating. But at the same time, because a lot of the images, I think some of them are intended. Well, they certainly for me as well to kind of make you a little bit creeped out, right? Because of the very vivid images, let alone suddenly seeing something that's not meant to be there.
The scary place is actually they call 10 Court of Hell.
Yes, yes. Yes. That's particularly disturbing, if you like.
There's a lot of story inside down there.
So I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time at Haw Par Villa to see if I can have any of these encounters of my own, perhaps, and see what I can see and hear what I can hear. I've heard stories of these statues coming alive. I hope they don't come alive and cha at me as well. But we'll see. I'll come back and tell you.
Okay.
Well, it's night time, and as promised, I'm going to venture into the 10 Courts of Hell. What am I doing? Whoa. Walking through here, every time you think that you couldn't be shocked anymore, when you stop in front of a new court, you're just faced with these new images that fill you with a whole fresh sense of horror and dread. It really plays on your deep-rooted, primitive nightmares, I tell you. There are lots of stories about these statues coming alive in the middle of the night. Well, so far, no signs of life. Was that me or... That was me. That was me, right? That was me. Well, this has been a unique experience. Not only have I had a chance to visit Haw Par Villa in the company of some very learned scholars and gotten a whole new perspective of the significance of not just the park itself, but of many of the installations here. I've also had the very unique opportunity to be here at the park in the middle of the night on my own and just absorb the atmosphere and the energy of the place. And it's pretty special, I have to say, and it's nowhere as spooky as I used to think it was when I was a child. In fact, I believe I'm leaving Haw Par Villa tonight with a whole new perspective on the place and also some interesting lessons learned. And I think if you come and visit here with an open mind, you're going to leave here with some valuable lessons as well.